I realised that I needed to know my stuff better than some of the professionals that have been doing things for 10 years plus, and that's one of the key things that started setting me apart, having conversations and turning people's mindset around. It's like, all right, he might be young, but he really knows his stuff. There's something in that. But regardless of that, the message to the audience is, you won't be able to change everybody. You're going to come across people who are just closed-minded. They just don't want to deal with you because you're too young, because you're this, you're that, you're from Wales even, I met somebody in London before when raising money. At first question he asked me, do I have a double barrel surname? No, I don't. That's fine, I don't work with anybody who does. What can you do with that?
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Momentum Invest podcast. I'm with Dorian Payne today, who's going to tell us all about his business. I've known Dorian for a long time now, and he's doing some fantastic stuff in his space. So we're going to get into that, and also with Will Roberts, the co-host. So Dorian, welcome to our office here in Bath. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us and speak about your business journey, who you are, what you do, and hopefully share some insights so our audience can get some value today.
Amazing. Look, thank you, Joel, for having me, and Will too as well. Pleasure to be here. I'm really excited, as you can probably tell. I haven't stopped smiling. So
To be fair, we were just we probably spoke off camera for half an hour, 40 minutes, a couple of coffees down, and I was, we were saying this probably should be kept on camera, right? Yeah. So I've made loads of notes. There's some really good nuggets. I always learn something from Dorian. So yeah, I'm really excited for you to be here, Dorian. For those who don't know who you are, what your business does, do you want to give us an insight to it?
Sure. Well, hello everybody, the audience. My name is Dorian Payne. I'm the managing director of a company called Castell Group, which is a high growth property development and construction company based in South Wales. And we specialise in delivering high quality, social, affordable and disabled adapted homes. The company is now scaled to, as I speak today, we have about 200 homes under construction and 750 homes in our land pipeline with a gross development value in excess of 160 million. And we're one of the fastest growing companies in Wales. And it's been an exciting journey to date.
Wow. That's really impressive. So where did that ambition come from?
I would say I've always been quite ambitious. I remember, years ago, just from school really, I just always remember being an ambitious person, whether I had early stage visions and dreams of actually having my own MMORPG video game. I don't know if any of you know what that means, but it's anyway, I won't go down there, but that was a big operation in my head. But ultimately I've always been in business. I can remember in school that I was buying and selling things all the time, trying to make money. I was from a very young age, while I was still in school, I taught myself how to import from China and lost all my money doing that. So it was expandable hose pipes and Lego iPhone cases and Chinese lanterns and Arctic lorries turning up at my parents' house, and they still got them in their garage now. So from an early age, I am quite lucky that I was born into a family that aren't traditional, so to speak. Yeah. So both my parents didn't really go through the school system and finish school. My dad's an old school builder. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. And over the years, they were just buying properties to do up themselves without any business plan or any kind of idea where they were going to. And when I was quite young in school, I would go to work in these properties I was destined to be an electrician, but I ended up really sweeping up and making tea and and stripping wallpaper, and I just couldn't stand being on site. Time just dragged. So I started helping my mum manage the rentals instead. A lot of tenants were in rent arrears, the certificates weren't really there. So I kind of taught myself how to be a letting agent, and then I did a formal qualification in it, NFOPP, years ago. I think I was about 16. And I set my own business up from there to do it for other landlords then, which was a letting agency.
What age did you start your first development project?
So I started my first business, a proper business, when I was 16, which was the letting agency. Yeah. And I scaled that into an estate agency. I think I was about 18 then. I did my qualification in that. Then I scaled that into a finance brokerage, because I was a bit of a control freak. I didn't like giving leads away. So I learned how to, I did CMAP and CRA, and I started doing the finance. And then I went into commercial sales, lettings and finance brokering as well. I was about 20. And alongside that, I started doing a lot of networking over the bridge. So London areas, and working with investors. And I did my first kind of buy-to-let when I was 19, so buy, refurbish, refinance. And I did my first development when I was 21, which was a private scheme. And then the social business when I was 23, sorry.
Wow. Did you have any barriers? Obviously, being that age, doing your first development, were other people accepting of that, or did you have to push through some barriers to get that done?
So there's always been barriers, definitely. Yeah. There's been so many barriers. Age, when I had my letting agency, it was cold calling landlords who mainly had their ads on Gumtree. We could charge tenants back then. So the business was founded off charging tenants the letting fee and then getting in the door with landlords and then being able to manage their properties, then charging the landlord. I would turn up to meetings on a moped with L plates and a camera around my shoulder. So straight away, then the landlord must have been thinking, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" So and I definitely experienced kind of age discrimination from then.
Yeah.
But I didn't really let it get to me so much. I'm a firm believer is that you will always get judged initially, because humans, what I've found is they do judge people by the cover initially. It's very rare you find people who are truly open-minded. But then when you start talking, if you know your stuff, you can very quickly turn people's mind. And that's really what I kind of thrived on, is that knowing I will have barriers, I will have people who don't want to work with me. But I did kind of take that as a challenge then instead. I didn't really mind the rejection, so to speak. It was more like, can I turn this around by knowing what I'm talking about? I remember, sorry for jumping straight on, but when my first development, one of my first developments, I sent a letter out to a landowner, and their commercial agent rang me. And it was a commercial property that was already rented. One of the first questions I asked was, is the lease opted out of the Landlord and Tenant Act? Because, if it isn't, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to just evict the tenant, right? Than if it is opted out, then the lease ends. And straight away, he said, "Oh, that's quite a knowledgeable question," because this was a RICS qualified commercial agent. Right. And then when I met them, I was like 20, early 20s, I can't remember exactly when it was, and just could not put that person on the phone with the type of person I was now. And one of my biggest problems is I can't grow facial hair. I'm 28 now, and I've only managed to grow this, and I don't want to shave it.
So. It's so funny because we had D Ludlow on the podcast earlier today, and he said he did his CMAP, right, and because his dad was a financial advisor, but he was a lot younger, similar age to yourself when in this experience, and he said that one of the clients said, I probably won't work with you until you can grow hair on your face.
Oh, so then
he come in with a beard today, and I said, "Is that why you got the beard?" And I was thinking the same thing just then, because you got the beard. And I was like, But that's a brutal kind of entry to the market. And he said, "I didn't do it after that," So it can shape you, but for you, you kind of powered through. And I think for me, real rapport is demonstrating that you can help people get what they want in that scenario.
Yeah,
people always think like, I like dog walking, you like dog walking, they talk about their dogs for 2 hours. Yeah. That's fine, you got some common ground there, but the reality is like, what's your needs and requirements? Can my business fulfill it? Yeah. Yes, we can, and this is how we're going to do it.
Definitely.
That's real rapport in my experience.
Yeah, and you're definitely right, but you will find people, and this is the key message I would give to your audience really, is that you can try to be the best at what you can. And one thing for me is, because of starting a business at a really young age, I realised that I needed to know my stuff better than some of the professionals that have been doing things for 10 years plus, and that's one of the key things that started setting me apart, having conversations and turning people's mindset around. It's like, all right, he might be young, but he really knows his stuff. There's something in that. But regardless of that, the message to the audience is, you won't be able to change everybody. You're going to come across people who are just closed-minded. They just don't want to deal with you because you're too young, because you're this, you're that, you're from Wales even, I met somebody in London before when raising money. At first question he asked me, do I have a double barrel name? Surname? No, I don't. That's fine, I don't work with anybody who does. What can you do with that? So this is a true story. So what I realised as well at a young age is that, okay, there's going to be people who just be like, no, they don't want to work with me. And for me, I just got to say, that's fine, next. There's a great book called Go for No, and I recommend anyone read it. It's a short book, and it really is just all about overcoming that word no, because people do not like to hear the word no. I don't want to work with you. No, I don't want to buy what you're saying. Just no. Yeah.
So in terms of working with other people, who do you work with? Is it councils, housing associations, or what other people do you partner with?
Yeah, so the business today, so Castell Group, we, from the very beginning, it's land-led. So I class ourselves as land developers, not traditional contractors. So the first major stakeholder, I would say, is the landowner. So we have to build rapport with the landowner, and we have to get them on board. Land is a brutal industry as well. It's very competitive, and it is cutthroat. And so, we have to be very proactive, we have to be very professional, and we have to make it that the landowner wants to work with us. And then once we've secured the land, we go to registered social landlords, housing associations, registered providers, different terminology, but pretty much mean the same thing, really. Ultimately, housing associations, and we take them the opportunity because we know, coming back to exactly what you said, sales 101 really. What's the customer's needs? How can I fill it? Let what you're doing do the majority of the sales. Rather than you having to sell me this pen type of thing. It's like those who need a pen will buy a pen. And that's what we're doing. We're like housing associations, local authorities. We all know there's a social housing crisis. Or if your audience don't know, let me just take a step back. There is a housing crisis and there is a social housing crisis. There are over 1 million people on the housing waiting list in England, and what I read this morning was over 90,000 in Wales on the housing waiting list, whereas only a few years ago that was about 70,000. So it's just shooting up dramatically because of COVID and the cost of living crisis as well. And we're just not building enough. The bottom line is, that we have quite a small target in Wales of 4,000 a year, which doesn't even bridge that. If it was 4,000 years and we was hitting that, 3 years would have been 12,000. It's shot up by over 20,000 in 3 years. So even if you hit the target, we're still behind as a country. So, but we're not. We're delivering less than half. So there's a big social housing crisis there. The Welsh government have put over £1 billion towards social housing grant. England's even more, and obviously there's affordable housing more so in England. And for us, the traditional way is that housing associations use their own land stock or find their own land. Some of these are geared up like private developers now, but they have finite resource. Obviously, they have so much going on with other parts of their business. So for us, using the skill set of a private developer, we go and find the land. We make sure that it's in an area of demand. We make sure that it's designed to the relevant specification that most housing associations work to, and the design requirements that are stipulated by Welsh Government, and obviously planning and building regs, etc. We do all of that work, we do all the reports, we make sure it's all there. So then when we take it to the housing association, ready for them to work with us, we've done nearly all the legwork. So their resource then to deliver the same scheme is dramatically reduced, the resource requirement. So it's quite attractive for them that if we bring you a land development that's in principle's got approval or in theory it could be consented. I'm very hesitant there because the planning system is it's quite difficult. But we let that do a lot of the sales, and it does. They've got a big need, they've got published targets. They want to deliver 300 homes a year, 400 homes a year, 500 homes a year. Even in Wales, 1,000 homes a year, one of the largest housing associations. If they've got a 3-year programme and they know they're not delivering that, if we bring them a scheme of 40 houses, they're going to be, that we've advanced and we've got a legal position on and we want to work with them on it. And we specialise in social housing and they can see that. Very quickly, we become quite an attractive proposition. So that's... Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Well, a lot of our clients, they do private schemes, so private developers. Obviously, you're really big into social housing. How does the risk differ between the two?
Well, it's a funny one, especially over the past few years. So I used to be a private developer. So, others in our space are traditionally from a trade and construction background. So they've established might have even been a small subcontract business, then a main contract business, doing small scale stuff, then getting larger contracts on their way for private developers and then housing associations and growing up that way as a contractor. I actually came from a private developer route, so I was already being land-led, already finding land, doing it for the private market, getting planning, building it out speculatively, trying to sell it then off plan or once it's been completed. And I don't know if you remember, but when Brexit was announced and all that was going on, in Wales we had a bit of a wobble. They couldn't really sell.
Yeah, valuations are kind of just coming down quite a lot, aren't they?
Valuations was coming down. It was hard to sell anything. Took longer. And that
cautious, like people didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. And I was a private developer at kind of that stage, and couldn't sell any of the units that we were working on. And being a private developer, it's risky in that the finance risk is way up there. So depending on how you structure the deal, obviously you don't want to overcomplicate it, but you could structure the deal with a private development with very high amount of leverage. So you could do a deal, as you know, with your finance brokering business, back then as well, you could get 85% loan to cost on a development. So therefore you're putting 15% in, but really that's your own money. Normally that's a private investor, and that private investor may give you that as a debt facility. So actually you've got 100% debt facility on this development. If you're working off a 20% margin, it does not take long for that to get evaporated, because that margin, that GDV was predicted in a relatively stable or even growing market. Then if that becomes a stagnant or declining market, you could lose 10 or 15% off that quite quickly. Then if it takes much longer, your finance costs are at a peak facility. You're racking up dramatic amounts of costs. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I took a step back and realised, hang on, I could go bust here quite easily. So I didn't like that. So in my opinion, the risk of a private developer is that depending on how you structure the deal, your finance risk is way up there. You have to put a lot of money into private developments, and it could go wrong, and it could go wrong quite quickly. If you don't sell and you've got finance lenders and private investors on your back, especially if they need their money back too, it can turn into a very murky world very quickly. And you normally have to PG nowadays, which is personal guarantee, put your home and other assets on the line. So it was a dangerous game, right? And you hear this all the time, boom and bust. They call it the boom and bust cycle.
Yeah.
Because in the boom, you can make tons of mistakes as a private developer and still walk out with more money than you forecasted. But when that becomes a stagnant or declining market, a lot of people go bust, which you'll end up seeing soon. Social is different. With social and affordable, or even just forward selling, getting into contracts with customers, your risk changes really, again, depending on how it's structured. But let's assume that what we do is that we forward sell and we sell them the land with planning, and then they give us a build contract to deliver out, or a development agreement to deliver out, and they pay us monthly. There's no finance costs now, right? So technically speaking, our finance risk is dramatically different. So polar ends of the scale. But the difference is now, our GDV is now fixed, it's crystallized. So if you have not done a development before, and if you don't know what you don't know even, and you do not deliver that to the same build costs, which a lot of private developers don't do as well, by the way, but I said their GDV may rise over the course of the development. And GDV, for those who don't know, is gross development value, which is effectively your sale price of the finished units at the end. So let's just say, with private, we've done a development of 10 and we forecast that to be 3,300,000 plot. By the time we've done that, secured the land, started the construction and finished it, 2 years may have passed. That may be now 3.6 million, it could genuinely be 3.6 million. It could have gone up that much, 3.5 million. Whereas in this scenario, you may have agreed 3 million, be probably less than 3 million, because it's you're selling them all up front. It might be 2.8 million. And you may have agreed that, you may not have done a price review, you may have entered into the contract. I'm talking from experience here. And all of a sudden now, you've got to deliver that project too, and your sale price does not change. So if you've not forecasted your build cost correctly, that will eat into your margin very quickly. If it takes you longer to build, your prelims, so your site manager costs, etc., will start eating away with you. So your cost control becomes major in this game, and just being good, being able to deliver, because the other key scenario difference is you will have a lot of eyes watching you through the build process. So housing association set up as an established organisation, they're very experienced in this. They have a development team, they have clerk of works, they also have employers agents working them. So you're going to have people coming around and inspecting, and you need a good paper trail. Everything needs to be done correctly, and it's different from the private market. So people struggle to go from private to social because there's a lot more structure and in place here. So I would say that really, your risk of delivery is high. What
I love about that is like you've de-risked it in terms of the financing. So effectively, they're paying. If you've got the contract in place, so you know what you're locking in the price, the GDV, which is great. And they're forward funding it almost. They're paying you to deliver, and your profit margins in that as well. I take it on, or do you get that slice at the end, or
yeah?
Is it kind of...
So if you think about it, there's a land and a build, right? A land and a build package, which combines the total project value for them. In theory, if we've done our job correctly, we should have made some profit on the land. If we've secured a land at X price, done all that work and risk to either buy it or secure it, take it through planning, all that sort of risk for us, really, because the Housing Association can pull out any moment until they sign the contract. So hopefully there's a land uplift in doing that work. Not always, but hopefully there is. Then we've got the build contract, and obviously the build contract, just as a typical contractor, it cost us X to do, and we need to allocate our overheads to that, and we also need to allocate a profit margin to that. And that then is broken down into something called a contract sum analysis, which is a breakdown of the entire 3 million cost at each stage of the build, which is then broken into a cash flow or illustrated in a cash flow. And we should, in theory, be getting our overhead and profit with every monthly drawdown. So we get paid. So the scenario is then we'll do a month's worth of work, we'll issue a valuation based off this contract sum analysis. Their employer's agent will come around, they will review it, go to site, check off that we've said we've done X percentage of that element of work, and award a certificate or negotiate if they think we haven't. And then the Housing Association will then pay, we get paid, we pay our supply chain, and the process starts again. So we can do a significantly larger volume of work with a much smaller working capital requirement.
Yeah.
The vast majority of our working requirement comes from the land stage and the pre-con stage, because it takes so long to get your money back. If we put in 100,000 towards a land deal, it will take us 18 months before we can sell that deal to get it back out. So all of our growth and all of the working capital we generate from the delivering of the projects, we're reinvesting that into the staff, into growth, and into land, mainly into land, to keep that cycle going. Because the issues with tendering is it can be a race to the bottom, especially when market work starts getting slower and everybody's competing for work. Some people will buy the work, so they will go in at a loss because they need to cover their overheads, and so they'll front load.
Where do you see the biggest risks in your business or sector? Because I feel like you've de-risked your business model by serving a kind of a demand that's required, this disabled social housing space, and you've built up some fantastic relationships, and some of the projects look amazing. But being the businessman you are, do you assess risk? Like you could say COVID is now could be factored into a risk model, because how do we operate in that market? But is there anything you're...
Yeah, well, I touched on it there, but I didn't drill it home, so to speak. Of the cost, the fixed price scenario, it is actually a major risk.
Yeah.
Not to be really... It's great you can forward sell, and it's great you can get paid monthly, but it's not great if you're going to lose money.
Yeah.
Because you're crystallising losses every month. And one of the biggest risks did materialise for us, the kind of the Achilles heel, is that inflation went up dramatically, especially in construction. And we were in fixed price contracts, millions of pounds of fixed price contracts, and the construction cost rose 25-30% on average across everything. Nobody's profit margin in this game is anywhere near 25-30%. Nobody's, right? Yeah. They're lucky to get it. A lot of contractors in single digits. So when cost goes up 20%, and you're delivering that project, you're in for a really bad time. So that happened to us. Like I said, we were a £millions contract. Inflation hit, and some of our project, the majority of profit evaporated from a lot of our projects very quickly, in addition to COVID and lead times and things like that causing delays, which does end up costing us money because of more prelims. You still have to pay for staff, even though you can't deliver the project. Obviously, the government brought in some initiatives. There was furlough for COVID, so staff could be furloughed, etc. But from the inflation point of view, in Wales, it took a little bit of a while. But Welsh government brought in something called material cost inflation to try to give extra money on these contracts. But that did take quite a while for that to come through, and the values weren't as much as we were hoping or expecting. And some housing associations even, didn't pay us what Welsh government said that they evaluated. It was even less than that. So like we did one project, it was 1.7 million. If we did that same project today, it'd be 2.4 million. We had to deliver that project, and it lost money basically. But we delivered, and the housing association offered us 30,000 when Welsh government offered them more. But they didn't want to pay us that. Is their prerogative. We're in a fixed price contract. That is the nature of the game. The legal position is we sign a fixed price all risk contract. So I can't underplay to anybody out there that risk. If you sign that contract,
deliver.
You have to deliver it, even if it's the costs have gone up. If you forward sell and you main contract out to get that risk away, you can't be expecting a 15% margin, 20% margin on those types of deals. It's very rare to get them. You may get less than 10%. But ultimately, if you get a 8% margin, but all your risk is kind of gone. The developer now contracts with the housing association. They bought the land off you. There's no finance risk. Then you've got to weigh it up. It's not all about this 20%.
Yeah, of course. Just saying on, so obviously you're doing something right, Dorian, because you've just been recognised as one of the fastest growing companies in Wales. So congratulations.
And congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But what does your team look like, and what does your role look like within that organisation? Because from we met when you were there, you'd set up the business and you was putting deals together, and it was on a train come back from London, weren't we? And I was going through stuff. I was like, this is really impressive. I took a lot away from that. And but what does the organisation look like for you now and your role within it?
Sure. So as it stands now, we have over 40 staff at the moment, about 43, I believe. And the company is broken down. Is fairly modelled off a PLC. Really, we have a land division, and there's a head of that. There's a head of each division. So we have a land division, which has 3 or 4 in that, and obviously they just find land and work with housing associations. Then we have a technical division, which is all about pre-construction and construction, helping us, get the requisite consents, like highway consents, doing the design reviews and dealing with issues that come up on site and all the services, etc. We have the commercial division, which is all about costing, so early stage estimates through to full detail budgets and costing and ongoing cost value reconciliations to see if we're still on track. We have the construction division, which is all about delivery, really. We also have our own groundworks team now in-house that do several of our own projects. We have a finance division, which looks after all of the company finances. And then we have marketing, office manager, stroke HR manager, an IT manager, and then there's myself. And we've recently employed a community engagement manager because we obviously operate throughout South Wales. We do social impact schemes, and we do a lot of community work as well. So, we sponsor a lot of different schools, clubs. We, promote enterprise in schools. So you have me going around schools, giving business advice to 5-year-olds, encouraging them to set up like the stands and things. We just built bike shelters, greenhouses. There's so much we want to do. We want to have a really positive impact across communities, and now we've got somebody dedicated for that. So that's kind of how the team's structured, and each division, head of division, they have key objectives, which is through myself and them having a discussion on it. So I set the kind of the overarching vision and goal, where we want to be. There's a map in my office, right? So very big picture thinking. Everybody in the company knows what we're trying to do. Broke it all the way back down to a phase 1. We call it the phase 1 regional goal, which in South Wales. So all of the heads of divisions know exactly what we're doing, and then they've got their objectives and KPIs for their individual division, which they need to manage and track. And they do a monthly report, and we have structured meetings and reports every month to keep that rhythm and flow and make sure we're always staying on track. And if we're falling off, we can very quickly get back on. And in theory, if they all achieve their objectives and KPIs, then we will hit our target. So that's the theory plan. But as Mike Tyson said, everyone got a plan until they get punched in the face. But we get punched in the face quite a lot. So that's the art of it.
I think it's without the plan or the vision, and then the plan. You might be in on a boat with no map or direction or compass where you want to go. So you need to start there at least, isn't it? And then I guess it's getting the right people.
Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say one of my favourite quotes is, a battle was never won according to plan, but a battle was never won without one.
Yeah.
If you don't have a plan, you really don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
But it'll never go to plan.
Yeah. Just a quick one on planning then. You recently done Cranfield Business School, yeah?
Yes.
A little while back. You're an advocate of personal development, self-development and leadership and, improving yourself in business and outside, which is great. I'm similar, and know Will is, and a lot of our audience. So you went on Cranfield. We're going on Cranfield starting on Friday. Very excited. What takeaways did you get from Cranfield? What is that for anyone, listening in?
Yeah, sure. And yeah, you're right. I'm an avid self-development learner. I'm here to promote the word nerd. I am a nerd when it comes to business and personal development, and I think you should be proud of it. And so I did Cranfield Business Growth Program. I highly recommend it. Some big players in the game in business have done Cranfield. Like I said, Hotel Chocolat, Cobra Beer, Go Away. There's got to be something in it if big companies are doing it, that were small at the time of scale. And really what I would say is like a condensed MBA, really a condensed MBA for practical purposes. All right, you might not walk out of it with an MBA qualification, but really what it does is it takes that syllabus and it splits it down. So let's talk about strategy from a real world point of view. Let's talk about marketing from a real world point of view. And it's very much, if you could nail it down in three concepts, they go by a 3-step process, which is where are you now? An honest, real look at where are you now? Business-wise, resource-wise, mentality-wise. Where are you going? Getting crystal clear, where are you going? As a business, as a person. And then the rest of the course is all about, right, how are we going to get there? How are we going to bridge that gap? And it is really out of, you bridge that gap through strategy, through team, through execution and data, and through financial performance and financial metrics. Those are the kind of 4 pillars across all businesses, and then they drill down into each one of those. And you walk away then, you have to create a business plan out of those and pitch that business plan to an expert panel that have been in business. These are actual business people, multi-million-pound companies that have been through it. And they challenge you on it, They read it, they challenge you on it, and it's great. It is great to have that feedback from people
in that sector. They get like people in that sector to challenge you on the business plan,
as close as possible. As close as possible. It'll be from the Cranfield alumni. And as close as possible to your sector to come in and challenge your business plan. It's not really exact because they've got to be careful of conflict too. You don't really want to give your business plan to a direct competitor.
Of course.
Especially when your business planner says, here's my competitor, I'm going to smash them. So it's just as close as.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. Okay. I'm really excited about Cranfield, and it's great to see the journey you've gone on since then. But I put it down to a lot of your drive and personal development you've done anyway. So what's the ultimate goal for you and the business?
Sure. I mean, so like I say, if you go into my office, you'll see a map of the UK on my wall, and with pinpointed regions of where we want to get to. We want to be the largest and the best private house builder that specialises in the social and affordable and disabled adapted market space. So we want to be known as as I said, the strategic partner, the number one in this space that can collaborate with housing associations and local authorities to really make an impact on the social housing crisis throughout the UK. I can see us having over 10 regions, being nationwide, delivering over 3,000 homes a year, maintaining a land bank of over 3 years, doing joint ventures with housing associations and local authorities on landmark projects. We really want to be that driver, having massive community benefit across the entire country, just want to be doing so much. I'm just bubbling thinking about it.
That's amazing. What inspires you then? Because obviously you've got so much energy for it. What gets you up in the morning?
Yeah, there's lots of sayings that say that, isn't there? Whatever business you're going to get into, make sure you do have that underlying passion, that white hot burning desire, as Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich, because you do need it. It's really hard. Every business is hard. Scaling a business is hard. It is definitely not for the faint-hearted. I would say that. Sometimes I'm envious of people who don't have this drive, because it is a curse as much as it is a blessing. It's very careful. You have to balance family life. You have to balance relationships. You have to be strong to your vision, and that does mean cutting people loose sometimes and disappointing people who want to be on your journey but they can't be on your journey. It's a hard game. It really is. But for me, it's the passion that keeps me going. I love building a business. I love what we're doing. I love seeing the impact we're having. And one of the biggest things, I love seeing the team develop. Building a strong culture in an organisation and watching people become A players is probably one of the most addictive feelings you will get. Watching them perform and growing the business as part of the plan. It's better than any financial incentive. I'm not doing this really for financial incentive. I don't really care about that, but that will become a byproduct. They do say that don't worry too much about the money. You've got to have a sound business model that works. Then you've just got to focus on being the best in that space, being known as the number one in that niche, and just really scaling and driving down and giving tremendous value to everybody that you touch relative to your niche. And that money will become a byproduct. You just reinvest it, keep fueling the machine. Yeah, so I'm just excited about that.
Talk to us about the culture then. What kind of culture has the business got, and how have you implemented that?
Yeah. So one of my favourite authors in the business space is a guy called Patrick Lencioni, and he's written multiple books: The Ideal Team Player, the how to run effective meetings, how not to make your team siloed. So it's collaborative working, and most importantly, one of the key concepts we took away from that is how to build a great culture, really. And it's kind of, you're looking for three main attributes in individuals to drive a great culture, and your culture is those three main attributes there, and they are driven. So the individuals you want to bring on board just have this natural desire to want to do more, just want to be very good, at least very good, but ideally the best at what they're doing. They're just driven. They want to do it. They're achievers. Number two, though, is humble. So whilst there's a lot of people out there that are really driven, but they're not humble, and they are called, I can't remember, ball, like chain wrecker. The demolition, the ball wreckers, bulldozers.
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 Yeah.
So they're called bulldozers because they don't care about anyone. They just, I'm going there and I will just hit you out the way, basically.
Yeah.
That's not really good for a scaling team. It's okay if you're like a one-man band business, but as a scaling organisation wants to be multi-regional, that's not sustainable. So humbleness is key, really key. People who are down to earth, all about the collective vision and work together. They don't really care about status, rank, or whatever. The hierarchy feels relatively flat, even though it might not be flat. And that's it. And number three is people smarts, is EQ, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is more valuable than IQ, especially in today's world where ChatGPT can write you, can write you a business plan, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
But EQ is all about how to get the best out of people for that collective goal. So if I'm driven and I want us to get there, and I'm a humble person, so I don't care if somebody else. I'm promoting you because you're excellent at this role, and I'm giving you praise because you deserve it, and I know you'll perform really well out of there. And I've got people smart, so I can build a team around people, get the best, get your strengths and his strengths and her strengths to get to that goal. It just becomes a knock-on effect. And then what happens when you build that culture of those A players? Anybody who sticks out from that, anybody who doesn't meet those, so somebody comes in who isn't humble, very quickly the entire company's like, hang on, that's a virus here.
Yeah.
that's a rotting apple that needs to go. And then your job then as a leader is to cultivate and manage that culture, because the minute that culture starts going and you let it go by bringing in people who are wrong, you will ruin the entire company. And that sounds dramatic, but that is what it is.
Yeah, you always say A players bring and attract other A players.
Yeah.
I think, so
they don't like working with people who aren't A players.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like, I love them 3 points. I've never heard of it like that. Driven, humble, and the emotional intelligence makes complete sense. And you can have like terrorists almost in your business who, you know, are just disruptive, and, you know, they can perform, but they perform when they want to and don't really when it aligns with the business. Or you've got like puppies who, you know, they believe in the vision, but they just kind of shit everywhere. So, you know, you really need that A player who's driven, humble, and also has emotional intelligence to know what's going on, what we're doing. Because we were talking about earlier about, you know, someone who's passionate, but then they're emotionally not aware, so they get quite emotionally involved in things where, you know, we've had it before where people are like kicking the chairs and stuff, and I'm like, why, you know, you keep the passion, lose the emotion, right? Don't you know, we care that you care about the business, but let's simmer that down, you know. And then if you can get everyone on the same page, you know, when we turn up, when we train, you know, how we do things is how we do everything, people say. I love that, what you've done there.
Well, it's Patrick Lencioni, honestly. You know, he deserves the credit. I think it's fantastic, and I've learned so much from reading his books. But like this, when you see the diagram, it's 3 circles, and when they cross, there's people you want to cultivate those people and get them to the middle, so they have the blend of the 3 qualities, and they become what's called the ideal team player. And that's what it is.
The ideal team player.
If you bring someone into the business who's maybe a B player and obviously everyone else is an A player, do you then just cut them, or do you take them on that journey to take them not to A player?
So in my experience, right, you know, it's very rare to find people who are just A players. You know, they've either, if somebody is A player and they're really motivated, they'll probably have their own business. You know, most of the time. I really don't want to come across as derogatory here by saying B player. Like, it's not about that. It's about, in your mind, and this is where the strength of the leader comes from. The leader should have quite a clear vision of their company and of the divisions and how we're going to get there by doing things like Cranfield and drafting that plan. And then you should really know the type of, you know, qualities that each of those heads need to have. Like, an A player for this division isn't going to be the same A player for that division. There's lots of different skill sets. And a lot of the times you don't know if they're going to be an A player. You just only know when they're performing in the role. You know, are they getting the results? Are they also managing the team along the way? Are they also working with the rest of the divisions along the way? It's extremely rare that they're going to be able to do that off the bat. Your job as a leader is to cultivate them into that ideal team player scenario. So most of the time they don't fit as an A player in terms of my vision as an A player, but then they build to that, you know. It's only those then that are not willing to build. They can't take critical feedback. They're not listening. They're just not learning. At that stage, you've got to say, okay, they don't want to get on this journey, and that's fine. I just have to get somebody else that wants to come on this journey. And this is where I was on about EQ versus IQ. You'll find so many people that have the IQ, have the technical wherewithal to do the role, but it's those people with the EQ, you know, part of that. Most of the people I've found with high EQ are actually people who want to self-develop, who want to listen, who are asking for feedback. You know, Joel, tell me, I'm a manager of your division. Where do you see me? Like, what do you want me to do? How can I excel in this towards your vision? You know, what do you want me to do? You know, I'm doing the role, but what else do you want me to do? Where am I lacking? You know, you tell me. I love it when people come up to me. You know, I have some managers who say to me, because we have quarterly one-to-ones, you know, I think I want more feedback. You know, how else can I improve? What else are you expecting from me? Am I doing okay? You know, could I improve?
Do you provide that? Are you doing the one-to-ones with the managers?
So with my direct managers, I do one-to-ones, and they do one-to-ones with their direct team. Everybody in the company should have a one-to-one. Effectively, and that one-to-one is all about them. How are you? How's your personal life? How are you finding the business? how do you think we could improve? Trying to get feedback all the time. It's so important, especially from people on the ground, what they're seeing that we're doing wrong, or that we could improve. And that's where humbleness comes in, you know. All I care about is we're number one. You know, I don't care if a labourer gives me that solution. I don't care. I'm not pretentious about that. It's just, where are we going, guys, gals? And where can we improve? Let's do it.
Really good insight. I'm just like, I've got so many business things going on in my mind. It's amazing to see. In terms of like setting KPIs, who do you set them? Do you set it with the guys? You know, what happens if they don't meet the KPIs? You know, I've had that in the past with managers, and you know, what can I do if the person doesn't, you know, hit them targets?
So we have a base salary, and we also have a bonus scheme.
Yeah.
Everybody in the company's on a bonus scheme, and those bonuses are linked to the KPIs. Some KPIs are very hard to quantify. Some of the best KPIs you can quantify. You know, like I don't know if it was a mortgage broker, they've got X amount of applications or time scales they've got to do things by, depending on the quality of your systems, how long it is for them to respond to people. You know, you can track a lot of data. But again, there's a good book, Measure What Matters, and it's all about tracking data. And as a leader, you've got to ask yourself, again, what data do you want from that division, right? So if there's the head of residential mortgages reporting to you, for example, Joe, what data do you want from your training and understanding? Do you want to know, for you to know if that division is going in the right path towards your vision? And then you in with your manager for the head of residential mortgages, you have objectives that they agree to as well. You work together. It's a collaborative approach. So this is the objectives I see of this, because this is where we want to be. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Any objectives you're saying? And then to hit those objectives, we have to do these KPIs. We have to hit these KPIs to do that. X amount of completions, X time scale, customer satisfaction at Y, employee net performance score in that division at 50% and above. Whatever it is, then you track it, right? But the manager tracks it and gives you a monthly report, gives me a monthly report, and this is how we do it. And then we review that. Their bonus is linked to their KPIs, and again, in theory, if they hit that, they'll hit the objective, they'll hit the goal. And if they're not hitting it, you want to understand why. Is it a system failure of the company? Is it an individual failure? What's going wrong? If it is an individual, like you have to peel back the layer a bit, because you don't want to penalise somebody if it's genuinely not their fault. But if you feel like they could have done more and they should have done more, this is again where the leader is always giving that training advice to these managers. You have to have those uncomfortable conversations and say, look, I understand what you're saying, but you didn't do this, which is what I would have done extra. You know, so you did the first, this broker didn't do this amount of applications, I told them to do it, and I told them again to do it. Okay, that's great, but that's been going on for a month now. You would have known if they weren't doing it. You should have kept a close eye on them. You should have pulled them in for a meeting. You should have asked them if anything's going wrong. If they didn't do any of that, then they haven't done enough, and it's constituted to them not hitting their KPI, and you have to reduce their bonus for that, and say, look, I would have done this. This is so you've hit these KPIs, you haven't hit this one, so your bonus is reduced by, if there's a calculation, they'll do it automatically, and then you give them that training. This is what you should be doing going forward, and they should be taking that forward as a constructive process, because they get paid their salary to do the job. Yeah, the bonus is extra, and people who excel, they want to hit that. They want to get promotions. They want to do more. But it is a difficult one as well, because not everybody likes that. No. So,
but it's like, have you done any of the personality like profiling, and some I've got people that they don't like compliant with rules, and I've got other people that are like love compliance, so they kind of clash a little bit. So it's like, how do you build a business around, or do you set the business, this is what we expect, and then anytime you recruit, it's kind of, this is the job role, this is what good looks like, okay, this person would fit that.
So what we do is we have a job role, for example, so the head of land and development, or a project manager, or whatever it is, and there's a list of roles and the job roles they've got to do, the job responsibilities that they've got to do, and there's a box of competency scoring. So when we first take somebody on, they fill it in themselves from 1 to 5 of how competent they think they are in each one of those line items.
Yeah.
And really, that should be every task you expect them to do. There'll always be stuff that fall out of it, but these are the main tasks they're being judged on. If they do all of those tasks within, they really should be achieving their role. Then part of the one-to-one process is that comes back out from the manager's point of view, ideally before, and that manager rereads that through their list of meetings and notes they've made for the past quarter, and they score it themselves from 1 to 5, whether they believe they're achieving all of those. And then that gets presented back to them in the one-to-one. So that's half of your question. The other bit, though, is I'm a big believer of people playing to their strengths, not spending so much time on their weaknesses. If you genuinely have... sometimes you don't know until they're in the role. But again, this is also where a leader needs to be you need to be quite close with your team to recognise this is a very collaborative role scaling, in my opinion, a company keeping it within the culture, keeping everybody on track. You have to be very active and also a note when you think they are not competent or an element of their role is a weakness. And ideally it should be within one of these responsibilities. If compliance should be on there and you think they're failing, you should mark that a 1 or a 2. And if they've got us a 5, you need to have an honest conversation and be like, this isn't working. You're clearly procrastinating on that. You don't want to do it. You're negative about it. That's feeding into the team. What can we do here? And even that might be it's taking that away from them, giving it to somebody else who manages it, who's a 5 on compliance and nails it. Because if you're giving it to somebody who's a 2 on compliance and is always going to be a 2, not only are they wasting all their time on a weakness when they could be excelling on a strength, there's somebody else in the organisation that probably has that as a strength,
Yeah. It's like that saying, like, if your child is good at football and bad at science, don't get them a science tutor, get them a football coach.
I'm really interested to know, obviously, COVID, a lot of developers, went bankrupt, went under. How did it affect you?
The biggest issue for us was the cost inflation.
Yeah.
Definitely, we had projects where the profits were stripped out of it. Yeah. We had some assistance, but it didn't really cover everything. In some cases, it covered a fraction, really, of what actually happened. So that was the hardest thing for us, overcoming cost inflation. Like I said, we're doing a project now, 1.7 million. In today's market, it'd be 2.4. Prices have gone up 30% in the past couple of years. You just can't predict that sort of stuff. Back then as well, construction inflation has been level for 10 years. Yeah. There was no fluctuation provisions in contracts. There wasn't. So as a new company, we couldn't just go in there and say, not only are we a new company, not only do we have zero credit, not only are we asking for a multi-million-pound contract, we also want a clause in it that nobody has. It just wasn't going to happen. So we took a big risk. But I'm glad we've worked through it. We built quite a good market share. We've got a big pipeline that's growing. We've got momentum. Momentum is one of the biggest things in a business. Keeping momentum, keeping that wheel turning. It's like that snowball analogy. A snowball starts at the top of the mountain. Warren Buffett named his book Snowball for a reason. It starts small and it compounds. He says it's the 8th wonder or the 7th one. I can't remember which one it is.
Compounding.
Either way, it's a wonder. Compound. But most people give up just before.
What does momentum mean to you then? Is it that snowball effect, or what does it mean? Because the podcast called Momentum Invest, right? So
amazing.
Based on that,
it's true. Momentum for me means compounding. It means the momentum of the culture, the momentum of the team experience, the momentum of our reputation, of deal flow, of learning, of being better, just constantly opportunities. Momentum is everything. In a business, momentum is everything. You see, like if you look at the graph of Warren Buffett's wealth, it goes like that, up, shoots up. You've heard of the analogy of a penny doubled every day. Day 14, it's still in the hundreds of pounds, and by the day 28, it's nearly 10 million or so, whatever it is. It is true. It is absolutely true. We get leads now for land opportunities every week. Things are happening every week for us now. Whereas roll back when we started the company, you have to fight for everything. You have to do things that others don't want to do. You're scrapping all the time, and that's Yeah, it's one of the biggest things for businesses.
Yeah. Is there a lot of competition between developers sort of locally and internationally?
Yeah, I would say that there's competition in everything you're going to do now. You know, I sorry to keep plugging books, but I read Blue Ocean Strategy several times, always trying to ask myself, where's the blue ocean here? You know, there's the red oceans are the highly competitive markets. Everyone's doing the same thing. It's very hard to get differentiation in that market, and then ends up coming down cost really, and margins get squeezed. For us, our big differentiator is that we're land-led and we specialise in the social market space. There's not many people who do that to the level that we do it. You know, we are pretty much 100% land-led. We don't do hardly any tendering. So it's a big thing for us, and we built momentum doing that. So that's what I would say. Yeah. But as any business listening to this, try to work out, is there some form of blue ocean, where there's not as much competition going on, some angle, some niche. Even if you're in a niche, can you niche again? If you can find something that unlocks a bit of a blue ocean, even if there's a blue pond, get in there.
I think it's so true, because like when I went first out of the company, I could do any type of mortgage effectively.
That's a red ocean.
But then I was like, how do I get a bit more traction? And I was like, well, I'll just focus on investors. And then it was developers. So even though there was brokers in that space, there wasn't many, or really many that understood actually the strategies that the investors and developers were applying, and what finance was available. And then off the back of that, you kind of get market share, grow quickly, build a team, and then you can pivot into different avenues, or hopefully other blue oceans.
Even with your wealth business, you've operated several businesses and scaled them, and you are also one of the fastest growing businesses in Wales. So it's a great achievement. And then in your wealth business, as we said, instead of being a traditional IFA that's just gone through and I'm not downgrading them at all, but their path, never having a business and just going through the theoretical model, then working for an IFA, being taught how to do something. You're a very much outside the box thinker. So when you come to those clients, and when you have your specialism, that's an untapped blue ocean niche within a niche. It's and you can very quickly build a good name about that and attract certain clients that are very proactive business people who want to maximise their retirement pension pot in those areas. It could be phenomenal.
It comes back to what you were saying as well. Like, although money is the byproduct, it's actually doing what's right and actually having the passion to care. Like I care about the business progression. I care about the team progression, but also care about the client's progression. Wealth management is very much about that. It's like, protecting, growing, but helping clients make informed decisions by having the right information. So I think, like, what do you want? Like, everyone's, like you're saying with landowners, like what do you want to do and how do we support that? 100%, so 100%. I agree with that.
You spoke about niches. Is there any opportunities you're seeing at the moment in the development space?
There's always opportunities. The problem is with a business owner, there's too much opportunity. When you become, if you're a natural entrepreneur, the definition of an entrepreneur. I can't do this word for word now, but the broad definition is that somebody who pursues an opportunity without regard of the resources they have available. Right. So the definition of an entrepreneur is, they see an opportunity and they just go for it without the care that they don't have the money, they don't have the team. They're just going to go for it, right? And that is the problem. If you're an entrepreneur, opportunities, they call it the shiny penny syndrome. They're everywhere all the time. And actually, one of my biggest weaknesses, and has been, I've been in business for a while now, so I've really tried to manage it. But early days, I was the worst for it. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to drink the ocean. It's honestly, so there's too much opportunity, and you can be successful. I look around us right now, and I see multi-million-pound opportunities in everything. Around us, the building we're in, the M&E that we're sitting under, the furniture that we're sitting on, the clothing that you're wearing, the equipment, the videography stuff that you do. It's endless. All the time, it's endless. The entrepreneur, the successful business owner that moves away from pure entrepreneurialism can control that urge and really then critically analyse it and say, does that really benefit where I'm trying to go? I know, where am I going? How am I getting there? does this opportunity distract me from getting there, or does it complement it? And if it complements it, is it the right time now? You know, or is it not? You know, do I have enough cash flow in the business? Should I focus on that? If you're in a business that's tight on cash flow, number one is to focus on cash flow, not to do an expansion right now.
Yeah.
Do you align your like personal goals with business, or is it all one for you? Because I feel like as an entrepreneur or business owner, the goal is to the progression and the business where we head in, but that almost feels like my life's mission. But I think it's really hard to have clarity. It's really important, like, you know, how do we have clarity, or you put a strategy in place? But have you separated the two in terms of personal and business, or is it you know, there's no right or wrong answer.
So two people have come to mind, as from you said, right? And Mark Zuckerberg is one of them. And some people like him, some people hate him. But, you know, I disregard all of that. And there's a key sentence that he said, or a couple of sentences he said. Somebody asked him, how many hours do you work? And he said, well, if you count my office hours, you know, I'm probably 60 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week, something like that. But if you count the hours that I'm away for the office and just the pursuit of the business in general, it's all the time. You know, it's all the time. And for me, that's the key thing. I don't judge what I do in hours. From the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep, I'm constantly thinking. I'm there in that zone because it's such a big passion for me. It's a life pursuit, you know. And my goal is that big that it's constant. And the other person that came to mind was Matthew McConaughey. In his talk he did, is somebody asked him, who's your idol? Who's your role model? And he said that his role model his hero, he called it, is who I am in 10 years. And for me, that's very similar. You know, I don't want to sound big-headed at all that, my role model is me, or my hero is me, but it's where I'm going to be in 10 years.
Yeah, chasing that kind of...
Yeah, because there's no one really... I've got a path, and I feel that my path is very clear, crystal clear, to the point that I can actually benchmark my hero to who I'm going to be in 10 years, where my business is going to be in 10 years. And no doubt, like Matthew McConaughey said, when I get there, I'll have a new hero in 10 years, you know? So I think it comes back down to that, where do you go in? And if you're really crystal clear on that, you know, it will guide you.
Awesome. Well, that's all from me.
Yeah, all good.
Dorian, thank you so much for joining us today. Fountain of knowledge, like I said. Congratulations on your success.
Thanks.
And we look forward to seeing the progression of the business and the team and yourself as well. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope it's been valuable for your audience.
Yeah.
And again, I look forward to keep watching your journey too.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers.
This podcast was brought to you by Ramsey & White Finance and Property Investors. We specialise in helping property investors fund their deals all across the UK. We also have Ramsey & White Wealth Management, Accountancy and Ramsey & White Estate Agents. I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, TFG Capital, who specialise in bridging and helping clients momentum invest by putting the right finance in place for their projects.